deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host. Today, because I've been really on my kicking clients about this, I'm going to talk about a lot about, which is going to be very relatable to a lot of things in life in general, but more or less like the art of forming habits, because it's very difficult for a lot of people to make a commitment. Well, make a commitment is one thing, but sticking with a commitment is another. But the problem with people who can't fulfill that commitment is they're not patient enough to get through the process of developing habits for that new commitment. Now, again, if it's a process, or if it's, thinking about diet, think about exercise, think about kicking clearly. There's a lot of things that play a role in your decision making when you're going through a process of change, and it's very difficult for some people to, and that's another reason why, as far as goals are concerned, I don't look too far ahead, because if you look too far ahead, you forget about the process that you'll have to develop to maintain these habits and create the habits in general. And obviously, the common sense would tell you that the harder the process is to achieve, the more complex movements, we'll say, again, kicking, the more time it's going to take to develop those habits. And people lose patience because they're looking for the result too early. That's another reason why I keep saying, don't look too far ahead when you set your goals. Don't make them too unrealistic. Don't make them too, difficult to achieve. But just understand that there's a process involved that's going to have to take place in order for those goals to be achieved. And a lot of times those processes require new habits. And it's very important with kicking. And I'm going to relate a lot of this with regards to just the concept of the result and the goal. Yes, as a kicker, our goal is to make a kick go through the uprights, far enough, straight enough, high enough. Okay. Well, if you're looking for that result immediately after you've put your foot on the ball, you pop your head up. There's certain anxiety issues that you go into and get involved with, and it'll screw up the result. If you're a kicker, learning a new method, which is all of my guys for the most part, because everybody that comes to me has got some issues that I would say, man, we got to work on some things here, and I fight against their instincts. So again, what I'm teaching these guys to do is different than what they instinctually think. And so that clearly is a very big challenge, not only for me as a coach to, get them to understand it, but for them to accept it. Because again, they're looking for the result too early. And again, competitors, people who have things that kind of more or less come to them pretty easy, those are the ones that are more impatient than any of them. In anything in life, essentially. You talk about your diet, clearly you have to have, it's a lifestyle change. You have to kind of deal with a certain changes in your lifestyle with regards to what you're putting in your body, and you got to make that a habit. Lifestyle change is habitual. You got to start new habits and maintain them and be patient about the results. And that's one thing that really a lot of people who have high expectations on themselves, they raise the bar too early, too fast, too high. They are the ones that kind of are impatient because they know what they've done before, and they think, man, this is, and they get frustrated because they can't achieve the goal that they're looking for. And what they don't realize is they just haven't created enough time, or had enough time to create the habits that are going to be responsible for those changes. So a lot of this is going kind of deep today, but I want you to understand kind of the mindset, that again, I learned as a kicker over time. We get one shot. We talk about kicking it's not incredibly hard to do if you're athletic and you can put your foot on a ball and have some decent timing, but to do the same kick over and over again out of, thousands and thousands of kicks, you got to make sure that everything is almost perfect, or as close to perfect as possible on every single kick. Because again, you only get one shot. It's not baseball. We're not getting 4, balls and 3 strikes, or however many, balls you can handle, because you foul ball. You can a batter if he puts the bat on the ball, he could have a million foul balls and still be batting. So there's a lot of opportunity for batters, for golfers. Yeah, it's one shot at a time, but over the period of the course, 18 holes is a lot of shots, right? So think about a kicker. It's very difficult because you either make it or you don't. And in order for that to happen, you got to be very patient and understanding the habits that you need to create the mechanics, really. And ideally, that's my opinion. There's other guys out there that would think that the athleticism will take care of it for them. And that only lasts so long. And I can get into that in another episode. But for now, we're going to stick with how to create habits. And so we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor to talk about the creation of habits and how exactly to do that. So here we are for a word from our sponsor.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC 267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
All right, welcome back. Yes, so with regards to just the beginning stages of understanding this process of developing new habits, first off, there is a belief. You have to be have a certain belief for what it is you're about to do and change and all that stuff. So that starts with that, because if you're unsure, if you have some insecurities about what it is you're about to do, and you'll come up with excuses on how to, just like, hey, this isn't working for me, and you'll quit pretty early. Okay, so as far as what is your goal, what is it that you're trying to change, that the habit that you've been in for a long time, for diets, you can think of obviously poor eating habits, in your general health, going to bed late, too late at night, or watching TV too late because that blue light kills your melatonin production towards the end of your evenings. We're supposed to go to bed, fairly quickly after the sun goes down. It's for a reason, okay? Because our bodies are geared to do that. So again, if you're not in the habit of doing that, it's going to take some time and patience to develop those habits. And then, of course, the results of those habits are something that, like I mentioned before the break, that some people look too far ahead and their expectations are just too high too early. And I find that a lot with kicking. I'll talk about kicking because I think it's really important for you to kind of get a general overall picture of what I'm referring to, because with kicking, and especially the way I teach it, it has a lot to do with not caring about a result. I mean, who here doesn't care about the result they're about to do? Like clearly you do. But I try to teach my guys, it's a subconscious thing that you can't care about the ball. We know, it's a game-winning kick. And, if I tell people, like, they ask me, like, how do you deal with all the pressure? I say, well, it's going to sound crazy, but I don't care where the ball goes. And they're like, what do you mean you don't care where the ball goes? I say, well, listen, I care more about my form and my technique and the process that actually makes the ball go where it's supposed to go. So I'm looking at it in the proper, rotation, the proper way, that, the priority is the form first before the kick, right? Because what happens first? Your form and your process happens first, right? So why would you focus on making a kick before you focus on doing the actual process itself of kicking the ball? Now, that's if you're a mechanical kicker, of course, and trusting the process that you've learned really, worked really hard to learn. So in all reality, it comes down to just your mindset and your expectations. There's always, there's cause and effect to everything. There's consequences to everything. And I don't want you to think consequence is a bad word. We usually think, your parents say, there's consequences for your bad action or whatever. Well, that means you're in trouble, you're grounded, whatever, you lose your phone, whatever the case may be. But I'm referring to just consequences as basically a cause and effect. That's, you do a certain thing and that's the effect of what you did. That's the consequence. And so with regards to just developing these habits with my kickers, the first thing is, when I tell them not to care about where the ball goes, and again, I don't use goalposts when I teach my kickers, and people think I'm nuts for that. Why would you not use goalposts? That's what you're doing in the football field. I know that. I understand that. But if you follow me and understand what and again, really, if you think about it, and this is what I tell all the kids, I say, listen, if you want to use goalposts all the time, I had a kid actually just last Friday, I was doing a virtual coaching thing with him, and he's, I think he's in ninth grade, trying 40-yard field goals, and his form was all over the place. And I said, Alex, listen, you're trying to make the kick. You're not trying to do anything I told you to do, because this is our third session. So he's had a couple sessions and all the material I send prior to any session starting. He knows, he should have studied and known the things I'm going to tell him. And even in the first two sessions, he was still a little bit off. And then in the middle of those two sessions, he would, text me, hey, am I on the right track? I'm like, yeah. But the two kicks that he sent me were him kicking across the field with no goalposts, with no care in the world, with a couple little things in the way to kind of make him and force him to do a couple things. And I was like, yes, perfect, good job. So I was expecting when I saw him on the third session, he'd be actually, got some things down. He wouldn't be perfect yet, but he went right back to what he was doing. At least the video he sent me, him and his dad are on the field, and dad's egging him on to kick these 40-yard field goals. And he's trying really hard. I'm like, Alex, you're not going to do anything I tell you to do. And again, it requires a process. All these things that I'm telling you to do, they're accumulation of a bunch of pieces that complete a process. And in order for that process to be repeatable, you have to develop the habits of the certain pieces, and ultimately the whole entire process as it happens. And it takes time. Like I can't imagine anybody being able to create a new habit just like that in a snap of a finger. Like, oh yeah, I can do that, no problem. And especially as detailed as the stuff I teach. And so when I get on the field and I'm coaching, I've already mentioned it, but one of the first things I say is you can't care where the ball goes. You got to do these things, and the things I'm telling them to do in their mind, I know because I was one of them too. I was the same kid that thought, well, this is kind of weird. I don't know how would the ball go that way if I do this kind of thing. But my coach never told me. Well, he told me what to do, but he never showed me what to do. He didn't demonstrate for me, and so I feel kind of obligated to kind of demonstrate for my clients sometimes, because in order for them to understand these habits that I've developed over time. Now, we'll go back to that again. Is the fact that they're able to see that I'm not just, pulling their leg, no pun intended, but, just lying to them or something. I want to show you as a coach that I'm doing the things I'm telling you to do. And I want you to see that the results are actually what I'm telling you they're going to be. And so that's a hard thing for kids to do. And so my job as a coach is a little bit more difficult than most other coaches out there, because they are out on the field kicking field goals all day long, and they're teaching little Johnnies how to aggressively kick a ball down the field. And yeah, there's good coaches out there that teach good stuff. But when you think about the art of creating habits and how is that possible? It starts with patience. It starts with understanding you're not going to get the results you're expecting immediately. We actually used to have a document that we'd make all of our athletes sign on the first day that basically outlined the fact that we literally say this in the document, say, expect to get worse before you get better, because that's the process of you changing habits. When you do new habits and new things aren't going to be easy for you. It's going to be very difficult and awkward. And another thing I do tell my athletes and ask them, and bringing up the word awkward, I ask them, if they do a good kick, I say, how did that feel? That feel different than what you normally do? And they say, yeah. And some of these kids are, like another Alex up in Canada that I'm working with. And I'd say, well, you see how you felt on those two kicks in a row where you swung really good forward. And if I'm telling you 5 years into our coach-client experience, I've been working with this kid for 5 years, and you're now telling me you feel a little different. Like we should have been feeling different 4 years ago. It take him a year or so to kind of develop some of those things as a younger kid, of course. I was, a sophomore in college up there in Canada. And so the idea behind that is to understand that in order for you to develop a new process that you're not used to doing, it's going to require you to change your habits. And in order for you to change your habits, it's required of you to have patience and don't expect a result too early. Now, with kickers, of course, I mentioned it. It's hard not to care where the ball goes, and it's hard not to do things because subconsciously your mind is telling you to do things that I'm telling you not to do. And so the instincts of the kickers, tend to kick in. That's another reason why I don't use goalposts, because they try to make kicks too hard. Like they're literally trying to make the kick and instead of trying to do the form. And so that's when I go back and tell people that I don't care about where the ball goes. And I say, well, if I'm going to care about something, I care about the process that makes the ball go. So in everyday life, your diet, your exercise, your sleep patterns, your mental health, all that stuff it may require some change. If you're looking to change your life in any of those aspects or all of those aspects, you have to understand there's going to be a process of the process of change is going to require changing of habits and changing your mindset. And then once you understand what these certain new habits do, and if you do the habits correctly, you eat what you're supposed to eat. You eat what you're told to kind of eat. You eat what, the goal was for that day to kind of limit your calories in certain aspects. And we're going to focus a little bit more on protein this week and see how you feel. We're going to get a little bit more sleep tonight or this whole week. And next week when I talk to you as a health coach, I'm going to ask you, like, how'd you sleep when you went to bed at 9 instead of, 12? I'm sure you got up early. It was a struggle to go to sleep. I'm sure if you weren't watching TV all night, then you probably fell asleep pretty good. People have hard times falling asleep these days because of, anxiety or, watching TV late at night where the blue light's hitting you and everything. And so it does take some time and some change. And when you think about changing your life for the better, you literally really boils down to just developing new habits on what you used to do. And so again, lifestyle change, it's a very important thing when it comes down to the whole science behind it, because you'll never get better at anything in life if you don't, first off, you don't trust the process or trust the end result. Trust what whoever's teaching you a certain skill, whatever, for example, kicking clearly, a health coach teaching a client how to eat better or, be more selective on different kind of foods, shop a different place. That's a new habit. You got to drive down a different road and go to a different place. Now those are easy habits. So you clear that. Well, yeah, I got to go this way. Some habits are pretty simple and pretty easy to get through, but in order for you to understand the result that you're looking for, and the end game really is the end goal, you have to understand that there's a process that you're going to have to go through in order for that ultimate change to happen. And you think about an ultimate goal. I always talk about goal setting. Yeah, that it's okay to, think about, I didn't say set a goal. I said, think about a goal. Think about where you imagine yourself in 5 years. Where do you want to be in this certain, like, again, health coach, like, listen, like where's your, what body weight do you want to be in next year at this time? And, that's a thought. I don't want to say it's a goal. It's a thought. They can come up with, again, my big thing is, yes, there is a goal / thought later on in life, however far down the road you're looking at, but there's a multitude of processes and baby steps and things that are going to complete that road for that final end game and that goal that you're looking to achieve. And so I always break it down to even simpler goals, so my habits are going to be developed over time, but using these little goals each and every day. Each and every day, I'm going to get better. I'm going to learn from my failures and mistakes. Again, failure is never a failure. When you fail, it's just a learning opportunity to get better the next day. And again, so you're developing habits. You're going to fail in habit, creating a new habit. You're going to have failures, but that's okay. I was working with Alex today, and I said, listen, you got to get good at missing right, because he kept missing a little left today, and some other times he's out there. He's right-footed, of course, and me as a kicker, as a coach, I would say never as a right-footed kicker get used to kicking left. You're missing a bunch of balls left, you got a lot more to work on than if you're missing a bunch to the right. That's easy. If you're doing somewhat proper good form and you're missing a kick to the right, those are simpler fixes than if you're doing bad form and making them, hook them left. So with regards to that, you got to get used to things that don't feel comfortable. And I'll give you a tip, a hint, like, you have to maybe use your imagination here, but if you're kicking a football that the seams are facing forward and you're off to the side, there's a certain panel that you're looking at as you run up to kick the ball. And I'm telling my athletes to kick that panel, not the back of the ball, because the back of the ball is you trying to steer it to the goalpost. If you kick that inside panel of that football, naturally your brain's going to tell you, well, it's going to go to the right because I'm kicking, through it forward in a forward fashion. Well, from day one, I show them, listen, I can kick the inside panel. I'm going to show you here, but the ball's not going to go to the right. It's actually going to go left of me, which happens to be straight. Okay. And so that's why I say get used to missing right. And he's still trying to steer the ball. And Alex up in Canada is one of them that likes to kick on goalposts all the time. And I warn him about it. And I'm waiting for that day that he'll say, okay, coach, I'm not kicking at any target today. I'm just going to do the form and we'll see if it happens, but I'm not going to pressure him into it. But that's my point, is like, listen, you have to go through some processes and changes when you think about like lifting weights. Clearly, that's the best example I can give you. And then really when we have new clients, we tell them, listen, you want to make sure that you're not pushing yourself so fast. Like, you can't get this form overnight. We're going to show you the right ways to get the form, but it's going to take some time to develop this process. Again, create new habits. And it's going to take some patience, and you're going to have to not care where the ball goes for quite a while and forever, even if that's the case. But if you try something different and you're, think about like in weightlifting, of course, going back to that subject, you can't expect, and this is obvious, right? If I weigh 100 pounds soaking wet, I'm a little, kid in high school or whatever, and maybe even middle school, because I was a little shrimp in high school. I think I weighed 140 or something, 120 pounds in high school. My point is that, if you're wanting to go into the weight room one day, I'm going to start lifting weights today. Okay, you're going to put 225 pounds on the bench and start repping them out? No, heck no, you're not going to do that if you weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. You don't have enough strength. Well, guess what? In a year, 2 years from now, whatever the case may be, if you work really hard, you'll develop, and that's the process. It's not a habit, but it's a process. You'll develop the process and you'll develop the muscles, and you'll be able to bench 225 multiple times after a certain point. Okay. So again, you got to be patient and realistic. That's the other thing I want to mention. You got to be realistic about your intentions. You have to be realistic about your abilities and your goals. But in the process of being realistic, you also have to understand and trust me as a coach, whether it's health coach or a kicking coach, either way, you got to trust me and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel if you just follow the directions. But in my case, for kicking and health coaching too, because it is tough for people to make that change. If you live in a very sedentary life, it's very difficult for you to get into the weight room or the gym. But again, I'd say baby steps. Start by walking. Walk a mile or two, or if you can. Move. Start with moving. Make it fun. I don't care. Any movement is great. If you're not used to moving, just get out and move. Have fun with it. Then progress from that. But again, and the other process about that lifting or diets is the fact that people get impatient because, and I've mentioned this too in many episodes, that they drop the ball, they give up because they haven't hit that hump yet. They haven't gone over the hump where they can kind of see the changes and notice that they're feeling better and move forward with that and actually have some success. But early on in the early stages of a diet or a new exercise program, you won't see, again, you're going to get worse before you get better. I'm not saying you're going to get heavier and fatter, but if you're doing both, if you're doing a diet and lifting, or just lifting in general, or putting some weight on with the muscle weight on, muscle weighs more than fat. And so I've seen it a million times. People are getting in the weight, they're weighing themselves on the scale, and they're gauging their results on what they've been doing for a week or 2 or 3 or even 4 weeks or whatever, based on what the scale says. No, man, don't do that. The scale is lying to you in a sense where it's not a true sort of concept of what your goals are going to be. And again, if you put on weight pretty early, if you've never lifted a weight in your life and you start, I'm not saying a lot of weight, but just some weight, you're going to start developing some muscle mass. Okay. So there's a lot of things involved in getting, this long-term goal or any habit that you're developing over time. It takes patience. It takes persistence. It takes hard work, dedication, commitment, fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying? So and again, commitment is a very big word for me. I've always been a very prideful person in myself, knowing that if I commit to something, especially if it involves others, it's funny, it works that way because I don't want to let them down, but I've let myself down before. Yeah, I made a commitment. Have I failed? Yeah, absolutely. Man, this is. I started studying for a Series 7 test a long time ago, years ago after I retired, and I'm like, man, this is foreign language to me. I gave up on it. I quit on myself. I did. Okay, so it happens to all of us. I get it. I understand that was a little bit of an unrealistic goal because that was out of my wheelhouse. I'm terrible at math to begin with. Why am I involved in this investment firm and having to understand what these terms are with regards to investing and the big money? And I just didn't want to go that way. So I changed my attitude with regards to what I was going to do after that, and just kind of found, my kicking academy essentially is what I did pretty much after that. I started another company and that failed me. I didn't fail it. I worked really hard at that, but it just that the model was flawed. So anyways, you're going to come into these issues where there's going to be some roadblocks and some things. Believe me, I've gone through roadblocks. I've plowed through them. I've jumped over, mile high hurdles. I've done it all because I'm persistent and I want what I'm looking for, and I'm very, very determined to get it. But I know and I trust and I understand it's going to be a result of being patient. It's going to be a result of me being persistent and understanding that that's a process. And again, depending on how hard or how complex the process is and the change will be for you, thinking of diet and exercise, things like that with kicking, there's a lot of little mechanical things that you got to kind of get really good at perfecting. Once you understand that and you're okay with that and you trust it, it makes it so much easier. And you just know, and you can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and know that things will start to happen good for you. So I hope that was good information for you coming from the mind of a former NFL kicker. We are a little mindy anyways. Some are bad, some are like me. I'm normal, but I'm very detailed and I think real hard about stuff sometimes, maybe overthink it sometimes, but I know the reality of it. Some kickers are a little wacko where they think and they're just weird and they do things differently. But I'm not one of those. I'm not saying, but I'm just a normal guy. But I really love challenges and I love to succeed. That's a very good thing. Now, again, if you're looking to help others do stuff, you help them succeed. It makes you feel better. When you succeed, it makes you feel better. It all works out in the long run, and it just does require some patience and persistence and all of the above that I mentioned. So hopefully you've taken some of that from me today and run with it. I dare you to. I challenge you to run with it. Run with a goal or a challenge that you've been thinking about for a while. Be patient about it. Let the process happen. Trust the process that whatever you're learning from, or whoever you're learning from, trust it and go with it, and don't ever look back. That's my advice for you guys tonight. I hope you guys have an amazing Monday night. I got to roll to a men's group for my church. I got to get out of here and get on the road. So I love you guys, and I will see you guys next Monday. We'll have a guest on next Monday, so we'll see you then next Monday night at 5:30 with Mike Hollis and Zealous Wellness. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.